transitioning into the summer harvest, and some tips and techniques on what he has and what he does for his gardening as well.
Absolutely. Welcome to my office. So today, basically, I'll be going over everything that Chef Kurt said. Just for a little background, I work for a company called Plantations, like Chef Kurt said. We do corporate and residential edible landscaping. We just love what we do, and this spring is the time where we will be going through a transition of plants. In the winter months here in San Diego, well, that's first I should say, in San Diego we have the benefit of, or Southern California really, of growing all year round. So we have a season in the winter where we can grow things like kale and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and carrots and radishes and all that kind of good stuff, a lot of greens and everything. And around this time of year, April, May, is the time when it starts kind of heating up, the day length is getting longer, and all those winter plants are gonna get like really unhappy. And by unhappy, I mean you'll start seeing more pest pressure on your plants, you'll start seeing different plants put out flowers, which means they're ready to go to seed, and all of these things. And so that usually is a good signal to start trying the summer crops that we can grow here in Southern California. Many of those are cucumbers, squashes, zucchinis, watermelons, any kind of melon, tomatoes, and basil, and beans, and all of these kind of good things. Pumpkins too. So around this time we start to transition. So what we generally do is, and it's hard because I don't have a garden behind me to show you, but what we generally do is we will take out our winter plants and we will amend the soil. And so when you're growing summer stuff, when you're growing anything, soil is of utmost importance. You want your soil to be healthy and happy and rich and full of organic matter, and you can get that by adding compost, which you can buy from a local store, or the Miramar Greenery has pretty good compost. But my suggestion with the compost from the Greenery is to let it sit for a couple weeks because it's not quite done composting, and just putting that into your soil and giving it a good turn into your soil. This is going to help with water retention, with microbial life, which is super important in the soil. And it's going to help with disease control and pest control because the plants are going to be more vigorous and they're going to be able to be healthier and stronger in their life cycle. Now, I mentioned microbes in the soil. So the important thing to realize is that, especially with organic farming and all farming in general, and plants in general, is that the soil is just as alive as the plant that you're planting into it. So when you're doing your gardening, keeping a good supply of moisture around, not too much, but a good supply of moisture around, and plants in the soil, and just treating the soil as if it's a living organism, because it is, just the same as your plants do. That being said, a couple of things with summer plants is that in the summer, phosphorus is a much bigger deal. This nutrient is used for holding flowers and holding fruit. And a lot of the things in the summer are going to be flowering and fruiting vegetables. So what you're going to want to do is get a fertilizer, a good organic fertilizer. This is a great one. This is one we use. But I brought this out to show you the ratio on it. This is NPK, so nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, right? So you go a 4-6-3 is a nice, good medium blend of all of the things. And usually you want to incorporate some of this into your soil when you're turning things over. Another thing to realize with summer plants is that calcium for them is kind of a big deal. This is used in many processes in the plants. Sometimes tomatoes can get a thing called blossom end rot, which is where the tomato's putting on, and oh baby, the tomato's putting on fruit, and the bottom of the fruit is rotting off. This can be caused by two things. There could be more, but as far as I know, there's caused by two things. Either cold nighttime temperatures, which doesn't allow the calcium to move where it's supposed to go, or the amount of calcium in your soil is low. So one way to correct this is to use a thing called liquid bone meal. It's or even powdered bone meal or a little bit of gypsum. Generally, your compost and your fertilizer should do this for you, but this is a product that you can use that can help you. Now, if you notice, this number 12 is much bigger than the 463 on the other one, so it's very strong. So you're going to want to be using this sparingly. I like to use it. It helps. And then what else? When you're growing summer plants, now space is usually an issue because a lot of the summer plants are very big plants. It takes a lot of solar panels to make that big, beautiful fruit. You know what I mean? And so planting your garden in a way that's going to allow for like an understory of things. This again is challenge without a garden behind me, but it's all good. So when you plant a tomato, you can trellis it up with a trellis, and then underneath it, you can put things like lettuce or a little bit of cilantro or little things that need more shade and can't take the summer heat. You can plant underneath. So you're really filling things up. And the more leaf coverage of your soil, the longer your irrigation is the water is gonna go in your soil. And the more water retention is gonna be in the soil, and the happier plants will be. That being said, since these are fruiting and flowering plants, it's also a really good idea to put a bunch of pollinators all around your garden. This is gonna help with pollination and fruit production on all of your summer vegetables. What the kind of rule of thumb that I like to use is that we try to build an ecosystem around our vegetables so that ecosystem can create balance with pest pressure and disease pressure and with pollination, and it does all kinds of benefits for you. So if you're putting a bunch of flowering things all around your vegetables and a bunch of other plants on the periphery, this is really going to help you in like creating a little ecosystem so nothing gets out of whack, so you don't have to use any chemical fertilizers and stuff or pesticides and things like this. If you come to the point where you're going to need a pesticide, because you will, it's spring, it's summer, it's warm, everybody is out and about, I would suggest using some organic pesticides that we use. These are all pretty much derived from plants. Like neem is derived from the neem tree. It's just the oil from the neem tree. If you mix this with water in a certain ratio that it'll say on the back of this, and spray it directly onto aphids and thrips and ants and things like that, it'll work great. This is Safer Soap, which is basically just an organic soap that you do the exact same thing with. You mix it with water and you spray it directly onto the pest. These two are great. I would suggest using them early in the morning, and then if you can, do like a soft water spray on your vegetables to kind of rinse it down. The other one that we use, because this is caterpillar season, is called BT. This one is for caterpillars, and it is not an on-contact spray. You can spray it on the leaves of the plant, and then the caterpillars will come and eat it, and then they'll start to die. This one's great, but since we do have monarchs and all kinds of other lovely butterflies around, you really want to be careful and specific on where you're spraying this, because the last thing we want is to kill a bunch of monarchs. That's kind of a roundabout on the pests. There's a couple different trellises that we use, because in the summer we have a lot of vining and tall things. One thing that I suggest using that I really love for tomatoes, if you can get your hands on it, is these Texas tomato cages. This section here is a middle from one of the cages, but it comes in 3 sections. You can opt for 3 sections, or it comes in 2 sections. where there's a bottom with stakes on the as legs, and you put that in the soil and put this on top when it gets big enough. I really love these things. Traditional trellises, the little wire trellises, are great too. And those are great for tomatoes. Other vining things like cucumbers, and I guess you could do melons on these, but you'd have to support the fruit. But usually we use these for cucumbers. This is a great trellis for them to run up. It can be put in different ways. You can do beans on this as well. You can put it in different ways to save space. Like traditionally, you can put it like this, or if you wanted to, you can move it up and sink it into the back of a bed. There's many trellises out there like this that you can get from your local gardening store, and they'll be more than happy to help you out with finding what you need over there. Other than that, this is a really, really good time to get started on all of your summer vegetables. There's still plenty of time left in the summer, and with this cool spring we've been having, things are really going to be happy when you're putting them in the ground now. Where are we at time-wise, Jeff?
We're about 15 minutes.
Solid.
Pretty good solid, yeah.
So if anybody has questions or anything, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Perfect. I'll let everyone unmute themselves so they can go ahead and ask questions, or they can go ahead and type it in the chat box, and I'll read them live for you, Zach.
I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you so much for these. These are super cool. And now gardening, I've never had a green thumb, but me and my wife during this Into the World, we started planting about a month ago. And our garden is taking off massively. Our tomato plant's almost taking over the whole thing, and I didn't realize how much they grow. But my question is, we have a ton of pill bugs, potato bugs.
Okay.
And I wanted to know how naturally you can get rid of them, or is it just something, good soil, there's going to be pill bugs? And the second question is, I had no idea cucumbers would grow up a trellis, because those are the things that are getting attacked right now. Mm-hmm. And it's not like they're eating much of the bigger ones, because we have some really large ones, but the little ones, when they're all curly, they get eaten before they can grow,
right,
from the pill bugs. So is it too late to try to crawl this cucumbers, I think they're Japanese cucumbers, up a trellis, because it's it's pretty well set right now?
I wouldn't say it's ever too late to trellis a cucumber. You can always move it as long as you're careful, because that plant family, cucurbits, that's the plant family that cucumbers are in, they have kind of shallow roots, so you want to just be careful with the stem where it connects to the ground and the roots and everything. But other than that, yeah, throw a trellis in there. So that also contributes to the pill bug thing. That's usually a sign. They're decomposers, so they're kind of doing what they're supposed to do. So anything on the ground, they're going to start munching on. That's why trellising in the summer is great too, because it prevents that. What I would suggest is try propping up your cucumbers and your tomatoes on trellises.
Oh, I think we lost them a little bit.
Yeah, a glitch in the matrix for a second.
Kurt, we lost you, if you hear us.
Cover area. So if you open it up a little bit, you can get those kind of in lower numbers.
So we missed that last part. You froze for about 30 seconds. Oh. How do I get rid of pill bugs, or do I not want to get rid of them?
So sorry you missed it. They're decomposers, so they crawl around and just decompose things that are on the ground. So the best way to do it is to put everything on trellises and kind of skirt up your tomatoes, which means like cut the bottom leaves so they're not touching the ground, and just make everything go up a trellis and clear the ground level a little bit. So, and like get good airflow in there, and then those pill bugs should kind of find other places to go, because they like to be covered by leaf litter and stuff like this. So if you kind of open up that ground level, you'll have a lot better success.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I have hundreds. I've never seen so many pill bugs in my life.
Yeah. They really like damp, like right there, like damp soil things, soil conditions, like just right there.
Oh.
they're a natural decomposer, and like, yeah, if you take away what they're trying to decompose, then they'll kind of go somewhere else.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have another question from Robert. My tomato plants are yellowing from the bottom up. Any thoughts as to what could be causing this? I'm in La Mesa for weather reference.
Okay. From the bottom up. Are there, so I have questions. Are there leaves hitting the ground? Are there branches with leaves on the ground?
No leaves hitting the ground.
No. Full sun?
Full sun? Yes.
Huh.
Are they yellow tomatoes?
Okay, how big are they?
Six.
Feet?
6 feet tomatoes?
Plants are 6 feet.
Oh, okay, all right. So,
The tomatoes aren't 6 feet.
yeah, right,
Tomato
gotta be a big
plant.
tomato, right? So, tomato plants, as they grow, especially a mature tomato plant like that, they're gonna drop their lower leaves because they're just not being utilized. They're probably shaded out. They're not really taking in the solar energy that they're supposed to. The photosynthesis isn't worth them having around. So they kind of just let the lower ones die. You just prune them off, the bottom ones off, you should be just fine. This happens a lot. It happens to our tomatoes too.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Thanks, Robert, for the question.
What's the best way to prune my my basil plants so that they keep growing back?
Okay, so on a basil plant, that's a good question. On a basil plant, you know how they kind of bush and they'll send up a tall one, they'll send up a tall one. So at the tall one that comes out will come leaves out the top, and right underneath will be two little branches, I guess, with two little leaves coming out. If you prune just that first big top one and leave the two underneath it, it should be really productive and just keep like making a little ball, and you cut the tops and there's two little ones underneath and you let those grow. And that should be a really good balancing act if you maintain it like that.
I got that same problem.
Yeah.
Zach, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Best plants for us plant killers to start with.
Cherry tomatoes. Really any tomato. Tomatoes are in a plant family called Solanaceae, and they most of the time are kind of, unless you really like cut the top off or something, I don't know. They're pretty indestructible. Tomatoes can be dry farmed, which means you can forget to water it for a really, really long time. And if you just remember to water it again, then it'll come back, but it's still alive. So I would say tomatoes are probably the best one. Also, fun fact about cherry tomatoes, there's two kinds of tomatoes. There's an indeterminate variety and a determinate variety. So a determinate variety is a variety of tomatoes that puts flowers on, fruits, and then the whole plant dies. And these come in many different shapes and sizes. But the cool thing about most cherry tomato plants, at least sun golds, black cherry tomatoes, and I think cherry bombs, they are indeterminate, which means that they will grow and they'll put fruit off. And then when the season's over, they'll keep growing vegetatively. So their green growth will keep going and they won't put any more fruit on. But if you keep it around and can keep it alive through the winter, then the next spring, like March, April, you'll have tomatoes. So it's a really cool, like little fun factoid for you. But for plant killers, I would definitely say tomatoes.
Cool. Thank you.
Hard to kill.
We have a question from Tyler. Is there a veggie that doesn't require a lot of light to grow, but both my patio areas are shaded?
So is there indirect light?
Yes.
Okay. So in the summer, because it's all hot and everything, with indirect light, you could probably grow some herbs and things in there, like probably some thyme or cilantro or parsley. But what I would do if I was you I would go to the nursery and get a couple coffee trees and put them in there and just grow my own coffee because that's the conditions they really like. I also really like coffee, so there's that.
Tyler, you're going to be roasting some coffee.
Yeah. And they're pretty easy. Coffee trees are kind of like ficuses. They're in the same family, so they grow in kind of the same way. So if you can take care of a ficus, you can take care of a coffee tree.
Any other fruits or vegetables that would grow in the shade typically? I mean, it's tough.
It's hard. With indirect light, a lot of herbs and things would probably be the best bet. You could,
Root vegetables or?
yeah, you could probably try a root vegetable. But generally, I would stick to herbs in that situation, like woody herbs.
Hey, Tyler, you bought the wrong house.
Nah.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right, we still got a couple minutes left. Does anybody else have any other questions for
I got a
for Gardner
question
Zach?
from Joyce. She's saying, what about gophers? I have one that I've been fighting with. He needs to go.
All right. So I think I'm a little too excited about this, but we have another site where gophers are a big problem. And oh gosh, I love this product. There's a product called the Gopher Hawk that I believe I actually bought a few off Walmart.com. But if you Google it, it's called Gopher Hawk. It comes with a trap. They're like little tube traps. It comes with a trap or two and this probe, right? So they're super safe for animals and kids and all that kind of stuff. So it's a snap trap. I don't know. Some people feel weird about that, but I mean, it is what it is. Kind of gonna kill it anyways. Anyways, Gopher Hawks, they're epic. You use the probe and you poke. Comes with a poker and you poke around and you find its tunnel, and then you put the probe back into its sleeve. You poke with the sleeve, and the sleeve is the same size as the trap. So you poke with the sleeve, you put the trap in, you push down to set it, kind of bury it a little bit, and leave it. I'm telling you, I set one last week on Thursday. I was at the farm with the gophers, and I set one at 6:30 in the morning, and I caught that gopher by 9 o'clock. It is I love that product. It's made gophers for me a non-issue.
Can you spell it out for them, Zach?
The GOPHERHAWK.
Got it.
Like the bird hawk, Gopher
Yeah.
Hawk.
It's incredible. It really is.
Cool.
I would suggest getting like don't get one probe, but get maybe 4 or 5 of those traps and just kind of like strategically place them around where you find the tubes. Another thing about gophers is that they're super territorial. So if you catch the one, that's the one in kind of your area.
Good to know.
Nobody likes a gopher.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions out there for Zach? Alyssa, anything on there?
I have no other questions in the chat box.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Zach. We appreciate your time. Some great tips and techniques to keep your summer garden growing. If there's any other questions you guys have, you can always reach back out to us, and we'll get your answers.
Thank you, everybody. Hopefully next time we can do this in the garden when everything goes back to normal.
Cool.